Wait, where's the Gaytriarchy podcast?
I have clicked go and we are starting.
Oh, okay. And is it actually playing?
It's on a delay, so it should be going live any second now.
Okay. Oh, it's on. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Gaytriarchy number 11, Sex, Black, and White. Are you a gay guy? Are you a bi guy? Are you not a gay guy, but think that gay guys are kind of cool sometimes when they're kind of cool, and you feel like talking to them about things like politics and censorship and identity politics and how we shouldn't be talking about identity politics, but we keep talking about identity politics anyway, even though we're totally better than that, and we wish that we weren't. Well, you've tuned into the right place. Today may just be straight and bi guy week. We have a guest that is on that I've been internet friends with for a while now, whose name is Ryan England, aka Samas.broadcasts, aka Alternative Left, who is a very interesting fellow. And I've spoken about before on the show because I explained that I had one friend that's actually really read pretty much all of Marx, I believe, and he thinks that all of the modern day commies just don't even understand what Marx was trying to say. And I've always wanted to kind of talk to him about that stuff on air, but I also want to talk to him about other random funny things, like that he used to be a metalhead when the Satanic Panic thing happened, and we might have some other guests on that were into metal who are also straight guys, so we might get to just have that conversation later. But for now, let's introduce everybody from left to right, and I'm not even looking at the screen, so I don't even know what that is. Okay, looks like it's Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek Spacepan. I comment on the internet. I'm RA shit, ANCAP shit, lots of shit.
But you also were the hipster of all hipsters in Eurovision this year, like Computing Forever, Sargon, both talking about it, but you were talking about it years ago.
That's right. I like wrote a paper on it. That's how I graduated. I like shoehorned that into a way to graduate because I didn't want to research like I didn't already know everything about. This is what you always do. You're just like, I want to not research. What do I know a lot about that's random that I can shoehorn into a project?
And then like, I did that in a class with Burning Man. I was taking this like art class, and I was like, yeah, I'll do my little thing about Burning Man.
Oh yeah, well that's actually not even a bad fit. I mean, I guess it was for like a music related thing, so the Eurovision thing's not that much of a shoehorn either way. But yeah, like I always just kind of quietly watch it by myself in my room, so it was really refreshing this year that people like actually like also watched it on the internet. And like I don't remember this happening in like any of the other current years. I think it's just like the world's like literally just becoming smaller because the internet's getting too big. I love it. I think it's great.
All right. Feral Cat, how are you doing? Hello?
I guess it helps if I take it off of mute. Hey, y'all, it's Feral. Just hanging out here with the rest of the Gig Tow gang.
And, I just want to clarify, I don't believe that, Samasop actually knows, what Gig Tow is, probably. It's a recent thing. So basically, since we've last talked, I've multiplied. I started having my little kind of like whole gay. I don't like feminists, and let's like not let's have a gay community without feminists. That whole ethos has multiplied into multiple different guys, and we've actually named what that is, and it's called Gig Tow. I didn't come up with it, but it's, you know, like MGTOW, but it's gays going their own way, and everybody is still defining like what exactly that means to them. Do you identify that way personally, or is it an actual like description of an action that people are taking? What's the difference? Blah 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 blah. So when somebody says Gig Tow, that's basically the gist of it.
It means having a homo state.
God, our national anthem being an 11-minute dance mix.
Just some flash dance shit for like 90 minutes.
Oh, you fucking know it.
So, State of Bacon.
Yes.
How you doing?
I am doing all right. I am coming off of some liquor because, well, I accidentally fucked up OBS earlier, and I needed to fix it.
With liquor, because that always helps when you fuck up computer programs.
Yeah, it was more of a I deleted the entire show setup, so I had to redo the whole thing. It didn't take long. It just was annoying.
Mm.
But liquor always helps.
Okay. And hello, welcome our first heterosexual guest. I believe you're heterosexual. Ryan? Can't hear you. Okay, well, I'm going to move on and assume that he is having oh oh, this has happened before with him. He doesn't live stream very often. So talk again. Try talking, Ryan. No, no, we can't hear you. Okay. So I'm sitting here eating my little tiramisu, and this is
jealous.
Yeah, and this is my weekly treat that I give myself because I don't eat sugar anymore except for when I do. And I don't have the foggiest idea what the news stories are for this week. So yeah.
Well, the first story that we have up is Lando Calrissian is now pansexual.
Oh, and is he played by Donald Glover?
Yeah, he's the meme like shooting people video dude.
Yeah, and the fucking thing is, I actually liked him, Donald Glover, kind of from his stand-up comedy, which a lot of people say is bad. And like I look at it now and I think about some of the jokes, and there was some feminist cringe in it, but he still managed to be pretty funny and like kind of non-PC about certain things, and so I appreciated that.
Yeah, all I know about this guy is the memes, so I am the perfect denizen of Twitter. That's all I know him from. I actually thought he was the villain dude from Black Panther because I pay attention to what's going on in pop culture.
That guy is hot.
He is. Wait, the Black
Panther, the bad dude? Guy in Black Panther,
yeah,
Michael
hot.
B. Jordan.
Yeah.
So, by the way, few people watching, if you could smash that like button, we would appreciate that. We'd always appreciate the liking the thing. So, Lando Calrissian, who's the Star Wars expert here? Anybody?
I think no one.
Oh God, Katz is.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, and he's got a trip to the vet or something going on. So, yeah.
Mm. So we're just supposed to sit here and like talk about this was probably his thing.
Yeah, I didn't even know this was a Star Trek or Star Wars thing. Sorry, too many stars, too much alcohol. But yeah, I don't know crap about this.
Yeah, I noticed it myself earlier. It's really interesting that I really feel like they're giving this guy the, if you will, it's like, oh yeah, this is a vital part of his character that has never came up in any of the storylines, doesn't add anything to the storyline, wasn't important enough to put in the books or the movies, but by damn well, you're going to shoehorn this shit in. And I really think that's what they're doing here.
But we need the visibility, guys. I mean, it's not going to help with alcoholism or drug addiction or, homelessness, but we need the visibility.
Is he going to be dating a tranny? Is that going to be the thing?
Probably an
he's probably going to be dating the chick from Total Recall, the one with 3 tits.
Can I just comment, like, are you guys seeing what I'm seeing with, like, his shirt? Is that his torso from underneath that part, or is that just the color of the shirt? Like, is this, like, some really crazy futuristic, like, cutout thing?
Hold on, let me
go back up and show the t-shirt on the...
Hold on, I'm trying to...
It almost looks like he's wearing, like, a bra across his titties with a tie down and then, like, a fur coat over it.
I think I used to have that shirt.
It's not a shirt. It's a titty cover, and then you have a tie.
It's like not a man's
shirt.
No, I can't actually. I can't be a t-shirt. Oh, it's like a weird future kimono or some shit.
I don't get it.
I did have a polyester 70s shirt that had a similar print, to it. It was actually a really cool shirt, and I was kind of pissed when I realized that I had lost it somehow, or somebody had stolen it from me. I think people stole lots and lots of clothes from me over the years, and I just never thought about it.
Oh my god, I wonder if pansexual people are gonna give it like 5 or 10 years, they'll be bitching about cultural appropriation for like stupid clothing with like retarded cutouts that don't make any sense and are all gender fucky. Like, hey, like, you're not freaky enough to wear our clothes. Like, you didn't earn that. I don't know.
I don't know. I think social justice's long range plan is to like electroshock all of us into being pansexual. I hear noise.
Do I hear Ryan making noise?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I sure can.
Oh,
Hey.
how about that?
Introduce yourself. Say hi. It's been too long. Tell the audience that you are a person that is that you're happy to, or if you're however you feel about being our first heterosexual guest, and I assume you're heterosexual is what I remember.
Honored to be your first straight guest there, Prince.
Cool.
We're not gold star anymore.
So how are you doing?
Oh, same old, same old. You know, I saw the headlines about Lando, and yeah, well, whatever sells, eh?
Are
Pretty
you a Star Wars fan? I mean,
Yeah, I've seen them all many times.
okay. What did you think of the new one?
I didn't hate it as much as some people did, but it's nothing special, I don't think. I think this is a tired franchise. I think they need to let it fallow for a while.
Wait, Derek, didn't you say that you actually liked it?
I did. I'm not really a Star Wars fan, so for me, like the whole iconoclastic element of it was just really, really entertaining. Like it's kind of like someone like blows something up, and it's like the spectacle of watching it blow up. But like for most people, they were like, "Dude, that was fucking Star Wars," and they're like crushed. But I don't fucking care about Star Wars, so I just thought it was great. Like it was like made for me. But like yeah, like there's so much like ham-fisted moralizing in it. I just think that stuff's funny, but there's a lot of stuff they're doing with Rey that like would have been more interesting. Like I wanted her to go evil and go to the dark side, which would have been an awesome setup for the last one, but then they just totally fucking like cock blocked my ending and cock blocked the way I wanted it to go. So I probably won't even watch it anymore.
So basically, you liked it in a weird little Derek kind of way.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like anything. Like I just feel like you kind of get what you want out of anything. Like I'm not looking to like change my life over a fucking Star Wars movie. You know what I mean? I don't know. And like I don't give real reviews of things. Like I don't really pay close attention to a lot of like the elements of filmmaking that would make someone give like a good review, right? So you just kind of get whatever you get out of it, get your little bit of it. So yeah.
Yeah, I never watched the only time I watched the newer Star Wars is when I was selling TVs, and we all hated those movies because they make literally every TV look like ass. I'm not kidding you. Whatever grainy 70s filter they put over it, fuck it. People literally, when I was selling them a TV, especially the Samsungs, would walk up and say, "Oh, that looks like shit. Why are you having it on?" So for that reason alone, I hate it because of the image direction or visual direction.
Well, okay, I don't think that we have anything more to say about this.
Okay.
I am just getting that impression.
Okay, and the next one is Canada will now let people describe their gender on government surveys, which, well, other than, of course, and I personally don't have a problem with it. It's more the, hello, we have another person in here.
Buenos tardes.
Buenos
Hey,
tardes, ¿cómo estás?
Is that Jewish bi guy?
Oy vey.
Cool. Good to have you on. So it is bi and straight guy night officially. We just for the record, we have our first heterosexual guest. And you're our second bisexual person.
It's my coming out party.
But well, technically I'm bi, but I aim more towards guys.
Oh, so see, I never actually came out with a good. So there's the bi guys who like really that means that they went to a rave and took ecstasy and made out with their best friend one time, and then there's and those are obviously called the bisexuals, but I have never come up with a great term for what you are. I think maybe gay works.
Up by gay.
But don't let me be an asshole. Don't let me read you. Don't let me be an asshole.
It's kind of like a one drop rule, but like with more drops.
Well, jizz at least.
Oh God. Do any of you faggots here use Grinder?
No.
No.
Good.
So we were just about to go. We go through news stories at the beginning and just give some commentary, and then we just chit chat with the guests and ask them about their lives. Is sort of how we do this. So we were about to start talking about Canada. Canada, in its epic quest to turn everybody into genderless people that don't actually have private parts and probably don't reproduce, so that maybe they can just import a bunch of, I don't know, people from the like Muslim world, and Canada will become new Islam, or new Mecca will be Justin Trudeau's house or something. I don't know. That's I mean, that's where this is going. Like that,
Well, just look at our prime minister. That says it all.
But
I was going to go to the gay club tonight, but I think I'm having too much fun here.
So
I'm really sad because I can't like access the thing. I can't like it, and like I can't see the live stream. Like chatting with the people is like my favorite part of this, and I can't chat with anyone.
Why not?
I don't know. My stuff's not working.
Did I tell anyone that I went
to only YouTube?
Did I tell anyone I went to my very first drag show last week on Mother's Day?
Was it with your mother?
Oh God, I wish.
How old are you?
I'm 22. I'm still with my parents.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. You're pretty young. So okay. So, but let's talk about this Canada thing. We're gonna talk about it's gonna be all about the guests later, and I'm gonna go through. Don't you worry. I'm gonna ask you questions about yourself.
Okay, so Canada now is allowing people to have a third gender option. So if they don't. Trust me, I'm gonna totally just shit all over this in a second. But instead of just having a "Are you trans?" option, it's gonna be check the box and then describe your gender. Which, as someone who's actually had to do data entries for surveys, fill in the blank questions are statistically stupid. I mean, all Canada's going to find out is how many people are going to either troll them or are head cases and all this bullshit. That's literally all Canada's going to learn by letting people do this.
Yeah.
And
so, well, I'm definitely most curious about Samizdat Ryan's thoughts about this, because he actually lives in Canada, and although he is sort of a diehard leftist, he is very, very anti-authoritarian, and so I want to hear his take.
Well, I haven't heard much about this. It just seems like the sort of feel-good thing this government would do. It's all show and no substance with this guy, and that's very consistent with him.
Don't you ever think about like weird, nefarious motives though? Like how did you react to the Bill C-16 stuff?
Well, what was that about again?
Oh, that was Jordan Peterson's thing, how he got famous. He objected because there was going to be a law in Canada that made it so that
okay, you can't misgender people. Well, yeah, it was the best thing to ever happen to Peterson.
Yeah.
He would still be an obscure professor dealing mainly with Jungian psychology and neurobiology in an obscure wing of the U of T. If it hadn't have been for this, he's on the bestseller list now.
Yeah, well, absolutely. He was able to capitalize on it and use all of his little thing to work. But I tend to side with him when I look at it.
It's...
Are we on air?
I don't get it.
Yeah, we're on air.
Oh, okay, good.
What is the government really hoping to accomplish with it? Well, again, they're worried about this, but there's a lot of social problems they do nothing about. So, he's becoming more and more unpopular here. Now, I live in Calgary, Alberta, and we're quite conservative out here. He's disliked in part on his name. Trudeau's been hated here since the early 80s with the national energy policy. Did a lot of harm to the oil sector out here. And that name is hated by a lot of people to this day. And then on top of that, there's just how, just his constant optics. We say person kind.
Oh, God,
this kind of thing, and he's a cartoon character now, really.
Yeah, but like, don't you think as I think, and this is not a YouTuber that I align with 100%, but I do quote the part-time ski instructor and substitute drama teacher. Black Pigeon Speaks that's how Black Pigeon Speaks refers to him. Don't you think the likelihood that, okay, Trump is a reality star, he's a showman, he's an entertainer, but he's not an actor in the way that he's at least sort of aware of what he's doing at the very least. But don't you think there's a possibility that Justin Trudeau is just entirely a puppet?
I don't know. It could be. I don't know his background well enough, but that's a distinct possibility. I mean, for all their differences culturally and politically, both with he and Trump, it always does seem to be about the show.
Yeah.
And they're both good at it.
Mm-hmm.
That seems fair.
I don't know, just my comments on both Trump and Trudeau is it just seems like North America, we're kind of forgetting that we're countries and we need to have someone there that actually knows what the fuck to do. Instead of oh, this is all just a show and I'm going to do it all optics. Oh, wait, the country's on fire? Who cares? My show looks nice.
Yeah, because there's a lot of economic instability stemming from the NAFTA negotiations, say.
Fuck NAFTA.
Yeah, I agree.
No, why not? It's fuck the entire continent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird though, this third gender thing. Everybody knows deep down that that's not actually a thing. Unless you are the actual intersex type, hermaphrodite population is infinitesimally small. It's extraordinarily rare. Me being the person of anybody that anybody knows, I know more people than those people. I've met so many fucking people in my life. I have literally met 2 people who were full-blown hermaphrodites in my entire life, and it's less than 1 in 1,000 by far that actually happens to. And so the idea that there's going to be all these people checking this box, what that kind of really says to me is that they're not saying anything about their gender or sexuality. What they're saying is that they are obedient to a specific political agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, probably.
And it's just going to make
it's the flavor of the month, eh?
Yeah.
Or the flavor of the weird, creepy international communist agenda, or whatever the fuck you would call it. Full blown. I don't want to try to define it. I'm trying to define it for too long. So.
No, full blown social tyranny. That's what they want.
Yeah. So, anybody else got anything to say about this?
At this point in time, Canada is a joke. Let's be real here.
God, I just think that job's gonna be so funny though. The idea that you're going through these and then you see these fake genders noted on there, and you have to make a call as to whether it's someone who's actually crazy or just being a dick, right? But you can't choose right. They'll have to just let everything go. I don't know. I think it's great.
Yeah, if I was filling this out, I'd check the box and be yeah, I'm dump truck Ken. Come on, fight me over it.
I mean, the reason
Well,
why
they're just asking for it. There's going to be all kinds of people put in attack helicopter or something like that. And they have only themselves to blame for it.
You know what's funny though also is if somebody is a legit hermaphrodite, they're gonna kind of have like one of two reactions. Either they're gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is so cool! They have this little thing just for me. Oh my god, thank you, thank you." But I'm guessing that's not going to be super common. I'm guessing they're going to be like, "Oh, for real? No, no. The people who are putting this out, they're not like me. They're not like me. Fuck these people. Everyone's going to be checking this thing. They don't know what it's like. I have fucking dick in a vagina, and I know I cannot fuck myself. It's not glamorous."
No, it's funny, but it's actually a good point, and I kind of feel for trans people with all of these like trans issues. So many of them are like fake, and it just makes a big spectacle of it, and it invites all this backlash. It just like sucks.
Yeah, I met a trans woman at club on Sunday that I'm thinking about going to tonight, and she said, like, some of the shit she's been through, it's like, you have to feel sympathy for her, because she's been through some serious shit. Like, and she said that this is one of the big problems with being trans is you have freaks like Milo Stewart and Riley J. Dennis and the gender fluid faggots, and people who are saying, "Well, I'm non-binary," crap. You know, they have to deal with that shit because they're making, as the gender fluid / non-binary people, they're making the trans people look bad.
How old was the trans person that you met?
I think she may have been 19 or 20.
But they were like full blown, like trying to really, really transition.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I'm hoping, I really want to befriend her though.
Yeah, it's a strange period that we are in, because like it was trendy starting around 2014 in the San Francisco Bay Area was when people started like saying that stuff, like, "Oh, I'm non-binary," or "I'm trans," but they like weren't really trans. And then it peaked really in 2015, and then in 2016 everybody started fucking making fun of them. Like Blair White made her channel, I think, right at the end of 2015, and her channel by mid 2016 was the hottest thing on YouTube in terms of the transgender demographic. Everybody who was trans or interested in trans stuff was constantly talking about Blair White. And that had to be really, really fucking bizarre for, I mean, obviously for the trenders, but then like young trans women, it would be like, like they would be torn between wanting to side with the Blair White crowd and wanting to side with other transgender people that they knew in real life, because Blair White makes, she admits that she doesn't really hang out with other trans people. She hangs out largely with like the guys she's dating and gay guys, is what she'll say. So,
well, it's got to get away from that crazy.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I have a neighbor who went through it, was born Dave and became Dawn at some point. This was back before it became big, but she went all the way, full sex reassignment surgery and everything. Doesn't talk much about the politics and again, the trendiness of it, though. Doesn't say a word. I can tell, I get the sense she kind of doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I
doesn't say much.
I think that it would be a really rough situation to be in if you had this identity that you A, wanted to keep secret, and B, wanted to people wanted you to politicize, because that's the last. It's like, wait, but I wanted people not to know that I was born this other way, like that's why I transitioned, obviously. It kind of reminds me of this random little thing that happened in the Overwatch League. So I'm really, really big into Overwatch, and it's a competitive team video game where people, there's 6 teams, or it's teams of 6 that face off against teams of 6. and it's a very, very, very popular game internationally. So they have a team from China and a team from Seoul, Korea, and some other teams. They have this whole like league, and you can watch it every day on YouTube, and people go see a live audience of it. It's like this crazy thing. And they didn't have any female gamers in the league, but that was something that the game company wanted, because Blizzard is very, very like it's kind of SJW, like, to be honest, the company is, and like half the characters
There
are
are many gaming companies that aren't.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Rockstar, but I'm not sure. I just don't know.
CD Projekt Red, they're definitely not.
But
Yeah.
so the thing is, though, if like I play this game all the time, and I have female friends that play the game, they don't want to be judged by being female at all. That's not why they fucking play the game at all. That's the last fucking thing that they want. You know what I mean? And so they were trying to get this one. There's a professional gamer, and like, to be a professional gamer, you have to be really, really, really fucking smart and talented. Like, it's not like this is something that you're like fucking around. Like, it is hard to play Overwatch. You know, I'm a pretty good player. I'm in plat. But after Platinum League, there's Diamond, then Masters, then Grandmasters, then Top 500, then Professional. You know, like, so there's girls that are good enough to be actual professionals that are out there, and nobody gives a fucking flying fuck about identity politics when you're a professional at all. And they tried to get this Korean girl to like be in the Overwatch League or something, and they were gonna, but somehow they made it clear to her that they were gonna kind of like politicize her identity, and she was like, "No, I'm not interested in being your political spokesperson." So she refused the offer.
I told them to go find another token, eh?
Yeah, and it's fucked up because it's like, I wonder, and people don't even know. People wonder, is she good enough to be in it or is she not? But she was like, I don't care. I don't even want to go to the audition. Fuck you guys. Because in Korea,
awesome.
In Korea, you can actually make good money being a pro gamer, because they have different like types of gambling laws, and it's a really big thing over there. So there's like all sorts of game contests and shit. So, anyhow,
StarCraft started all this shit.
Yeah, it might have. It absolutely might have. Blizzard makes StarCraft. It makes StarCraft and Overwatch. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a tangent, but it's just, you know, the idea that people's identity, like, there's some people that want to politicize it, but like, when that starts happening, other people get dragged along for the ride, and they don't want that.
So, want to move on to the next story?
Sure.
Well, Leith Ashley becomes the first trans model to join the Drag Race pit crew. Whoever the fuck, I'm assuming he or she is? Oh, it's this person. So they have a trans person of color on Drag Race now?
Oh my god. Where's the black lesbian in the wheelchair?
So this guy right here is the newest contestant.
Yes.
In RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yes.
He's not bad looking.
No.
I mean,
No, it's kind of cute.
Yes. I'd date him if he was a man.
Might be a man. I don't know.
I need to say.
Yeah, I don't know if it says which way the person's transgendering into.
No, I think we can tell.
Well, I can't. I'm blind.
I don't know, but
What's
I'm
it
what
do?
we call a nosy person, so I'm about to go find out.
Well, it's dude to chick. If that bulge isn't just a sock.
No, that has to be a stuffed thing.
Well, I don't see any. I don't see scars. Oh nope, I think I do.
Yeah.
Anyways, Drag Race has a trans person.
That is a fucking stuffed package. I'm sorry. That is a fucking like
That's a
lumpy
sock.
tomato.
Lies.
Anyways, any comments on this?
I do. Look him up and down. That picture of him, Calvin Klein's.
Yeah, he's pretty hot there. What are you guys' take on RuPaul's Drag Race? Because I watched whatever season. What was that? I was about to say, which is the bitchy queen, that one that everybody kind of hated and thought she was bitchy. Oh, Violet Chachki was the winner. When I actually watched every single episode that season because I felt like I was not a proper gay if I hadn't at least fully given it a chance. I got kind of into it, but it was like, really, I have to do this all over again? Really? Like, you guys expect me to seriously do this whole thing again from the beginning? No. How about no? How about I'm gonna go watch Game of Thrones or fucking YouTube or something? Like,
Yeah, I tried watching season 6, and the only reason why I did was I was trying to bang the guy I was watching it with. So...
Yeah, that's about the only time I watched any of it was because I was banging the guy that I was watching it with.
I was about to say, I think that's a fairly common fucking thing. Like, gay guys not just bond over RuPaul's Drag Race, but pretend to bond over RuPaul's Drag Race because they just want to be around other gay guys for some reason.
The only reason I watch it is
For some reason.
Yeah.
I think it's actually funny.
I think it's one long veiny reason, but that's just me.
Like, I watch it with friends that I don't fuck.
The only reason I watch RuPaul's Drag Race is because I am considering getting into drag, and my drag's name is going to be Juicy, Jewcie.
Well, that's good. At least you don't have, at least it's not like a celebrity pun name.
Is that kosher?
Oh my god, we discovered Shangela
It is.
last week because she was one of the co-stars of Logo hosting Eurovision. Shangela. We just saw the name and we were like, I hope that's a drag queen.
There was a
God, did not disappoint.
There was a drag queen in San Francisco named Trangela Lansbury.
That's a good name. Really, all you need is a name. You just need a name and an idea. Then you don't even have to fucking do it.
There
Just have a
was,
name and an idea.
there was also one that was an Asian girl named Anita Whiteman.
Are you serious?
Well, he's probably
Oh, I want to be Amanda Reckon with.
I think there's probably Amanda Reckon with in every city.
Uncle fucker.
Here's one I have. I need a Raj. I need a Raj. Or Anita.
Um,
Or
So-
Anita Cox.
Oh, so somebody in the chat just asked this, and I want to address it. They want to know the thoughts on the Texas shooter. We're not going to be talking about that this evening because the details are still coming in, and that's not the type of stream that we do anyway, for the most part.
We'll just say he is not as cute as the last shooter. No, I'm just
Who was the last shooter? I've lost track.
Miss
I don't know.
Steam.
They're
The
nobodies
last
to me,
shooter was Miss
so-
Steam, and she was beautiful.
Oh, yeah, the YouTube bitch.
Oh yes, she was the most.
Love her.
If
Our queen, thank you very much.
the fucked up thing about pop culture right now is that like we don't really have pop culture. Like we have Justin Bieber, Rihanna, Lady Gaga. That's it for music, pretty much. Like fucking 3 fucking music stars that fucking anyone cares about, and then
Sorry.
and then like everything else is, and we don't have reality television show anymore. Last decade we had all this great reality television show like fucking the MTV Road Rules versus Real World battle challenges and shit like that, and like The Simple Life and like all this really awesome reality television. But nobody really watches that shit anymore. They don't have it. Now it's all like weird political YouTube like things that are happening is like what most people what a large amount of people pay attention to. And Drag Race, we do have RuPaul's Drag Race, but like there's such a huge sphere of like people who pay attention to these weird things that happen. And when we look back at who were the gay icons of the past 5 years, I predict Melania Trump, obviously, is going to be a big gay icon, and then
Yes.
the YouTube shooter woman, like people will dress up as her for Halloween and shit. Like gay guys will do her drag, and so
And her bad
but-
hair too. Because remember, the YouTube shooter has some really bad hair. It's like you take a good look at her hair and you go, why would you? Just why that you need a different hairdo? So I'm sorry, girl. Get that hair taken care of. It looks awful on you. I mean,
Love her costumes too. But no, it's so fucked. It's like, yeah, like it used to be like girls would have posters of boy bands and shit all over their walls, but like now the boy band is dead. Now it's just like school shooters and fucking David Pac-Man and Donnie Glover and shit all over their walls.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
I want to see the
Wow. We're gonna have like the Gen Y girls are gonna be all like Columbiners. There's nothing else going on.
Can we see the 13-year-old fat girl that is obsessed with David Pac-Man? Like, can we meet her someday? Can we bring her on the show? Oh my God. David Pac-Man is actually kind of cute too. I would fuck him.
Oh, I love David Pac-Man. I listened to his show. Oh, did you know he's from Argentina? I'm like,
No.
that he's also Jewish too. That makes me very happy.
Yeah, well, I knew
feel
he
about
was
rape all the
Jewish.
time.
I could tell he was Jewish.
And he also has that very European look to him, which is common down there. As my family who lives down there.
Yeah, he might be might have immigrated during World War II. That happens a lot, I heard.
Well, it did, and the thing is that why it happened a lot was because the weird thing is, Juan Perón, he was very close to the Nazis, yet he took in a lot of Jews, but yet being a Nazi sympathizer, which is weird. No joke. And that's why Argentina is kind of this very white population, is because of the mass migration from Europe in the 20th and 19th century.
All right. So moving on to the next story.
Okay, this is going to be the what is it? The big story of the week, which is why are whites always the bottoms in interracial porn? Spoiler alert.
Wait, what about? Are we still going to do that thing that I posted?
Wait, you posted a thing?
Yeah, I posted something in the group chat, but it wasn't a big deal. It's like, I can tell it real quick before we move on, because it actually had to do with RuPaul's Drag Race as well.
Okay.
It was a headline, and I believe it was wait, I can pull it up because it's on my Facebook. I actually retweeted it, but I felt conned because it had a headline, like it was supposed to be this like actually funny thing, and then the fact of the matter was it had no substance. Like it was basically just a headline, no article at all, period. Like there was like less than a paragraph. Here's the headline. Young gay man realizes his personality, in quotes, is just a large repertoire of drag race catchphrases. And he says, fuck my life, right? And he says, HR manager Martin has realized his very existence this week after coming to the realization that 90% of the things he says are quotes from the reality TV series. While he's undeniably popular among his circle of friends, Martin has been wondering what would be left of his personality and, to some extent, soul if the ubiquitous television show did not exist. Fuck my life, right? Says Martin, in between a series of tongue pops. But facts are facts. I don't have much else to say except things that men in wigs have said. And I'm not joking, bitch. So that's the entire article. But I thought it was very funny, and I just wanted to point out that there is this fucking thing that happens in gay culture, which I find extraordinarily irritating. When you hang out with certain gay men, they literally can only tell one-liner jokes. That's all they ever talk about. It's always one-liner after one-liner after one-liner. And then me and my one friend that I'm like latched at the waist to because they're actually entertaining, we have to like actually be conversationalists and like, you know, talk about things that are interesting. And then like 4 or 5 fucking faggots like make one-liners in between sentences. And then they tease us for like talking too much because we actually have things to say. That actually fucking happens. Like if you go to an after party in San Francisco, there's these queens that are actually like that. It's horrible. Be careful. Be careful out there. That's all. That's all. That's the soapbox for that article. Let's move on to the other thing.
So why are whites always the bottom in interracial gay porn? Not a spoiler. Not a spoiler. It's racism. Like always.
Oh boy.
It's some sort. It's always some sort of ism. Go ahead.
Wait. I just want to point out really, really quick that you can already tell that this idea for this shit was probably not actually like wait, no, never mind. I was going to say that it's very likely that a female came up with the idea for this article on account of the fact that it's like, who else would complain about that besides a woman? Because like, I you know, like that just seems, but no, there has to be a lot of black bottoms out there who are pissed.
Well, the guy who did it is very pale, probably maybe Mexican of some capacity. Anywho, let's get on to the cancer that probably got cooked up in a Media Matters lunch break. Anyways, ever notice how it's hard to find blacks bottoming for whites in interracial gay porn? I'm kind of surprised for equality they want black men to get fucked by white guys. I thought that was the whole point of intersectionality, was stopping that. Just putting that out there before we get into it.
Well, that's a very phallocentric and pro-rape culture way to think about it, that you just assume that the one being penetrated is the inactive party and that you see it as a form of domination. Well, that's what a feminist might say.
Well, that's what their fucked up heads think, not mine.
I think that when intersectionality people have sex, what that actually means is calling people out on the internet. Like they're not interested in breeding anything besides intersectionality. They don't want people to actually have sex.
They just like get together and then like criticize other people's sex. They just like police it all. They like sit down and watch porn and just like take notes of how problematic it is. That's literally what Andrea Dworkin's career was. Holy shit. That's literally what she did. Everyone's like, you know, Andrea, why did you choose to make this your job to watch all this fucked up shit? And she's like, because someone needs to see these snakes raping babies. It's for science, damn it. That's my work. It's like, dude, holy shit.
Wait, what?
I think
Sorry,
Pat Robertson did a lot of that too. You know, Pat Robertson and the Jerry Falwell and those guys in the religious right, you know, they watched an awful lot of it to make sure of just how degenerate it was, eh? They watched an awful lot of it.
Speaking of Pat
just
Robertson,
so that they can tell us how rotten it all was, you know?
it was
I've got a chat. Oh, go ahead.
Now, like I would say that homosexuals use the race to turn straight people gay. It's a no, but
So I've got a tab open on my machine over here, and I'm doing a little bit of research on the topic. And whoever wrote this article is full of shit.
Well, obviously.
I just had to look, you know, for science.
Anyways, I'm gonna keep reading a little bit more of this. With few exceptions, porn studios seem to think that there is only one acceptable way to show interracial sex: the hyper-aggressive African-American top and a submissive white bottom. Is gay porn racist, or is it a benign form of stereotyping? I thought they were the same thing in the head of a social justice warrior because they have a hard time telling things apart. Anyways, if searches on the internet didn't lead me to those questions, my experiences while trying to make the video version of my gay sex advice book, How to Bottom Like a Porn Star, did.
Oh, it's that fucking guy. Because I remember that book coming up actually, and to be perfectly truthful, the advice that they give for how best to relax your asshole for bottoming is actually good advice. Because I know I haven't tried it, but I've always been traditionally very bad at relaxing my asshole. And also not confident that like somebody wants to like actually stick their dick in there due to like what might happen when they pull it out. So I generally haven't really done that a whole lot, but the technique that the guy described in that book was that the best way to tense the asshole is that get the bottom to to relax the asshole is you tense it as hard as you can for about 20 seconds while the dick is kind of like moving around, like have the dick kind of like poking at it, and you make sure that it's like as tight as you possibly can, and after about 20 seconds you get really exhausted, and then you kind of like you can stop, you're allowed to stop tensing, and then the guy can stick his dick in and it's really easy and it slides right in. I didn't know that. Sorry, that was a tangent. Keep reading.
Okay. Anyways, you'd be breaking an unwritten rule of gay porn, one producer says. Most white guys who watch interracial porn want the fantasy of submitting to a tough street thug. Well, I said to him, I like interracial porn and I like to see more versatility. Of course you would, because equality. Can't have any fantasies in equality. Anyways, the producer insisted I was in the minority and that my video wouldn't go viral if I insisted on having a white top. Wait, is this guy's not black? What's it matter to him? Anyways, but what about African Americans? I asked. Are you telling me there isn't a black guy out there who wants to see white's top? Not in our market. They don't buy or rent interracial porn anywhere near the amounts that whites do. Oh, the horror.
Well, understandable.
Mm-hmm.
The market.
Yeah, basically in and out, just going into the hole. They want to see the thug, fuck some white dude all up. And that's not very interesting. And I can... Anyways. Comments while I'm finding an interesting place to start
okay,
reading.
yeah. I do have some comments about that. There's another little random tangential story that I remember. So I briefly dated this really, really, really sketchy guy in when I was living in New York City. He lived in Queens, and I would go and have sex with him in Queens. And he lived with his sister, who was a stripper, who would fly all the way to Vegas and make a whole bunch of. She was probably a hoe. Now that I think about it. And I think they were both hoes, and but he was hot though. That's why I would have
Pretty
sex.
much all hot gay guys tend to be hoes.
Yeah, but no, I think he was literally actually like because he was in massage school and he would do happy endings. Like I learned that about him after having sex with him a few times. I only had sex with him like 3 times. I didn't date him. I just had sex with him to be perfectly truthful. But he was so sketchy. He was literally the sketchiest guy I've ever had sex with. And one of the things that happened, so I did ecstasy, as we called it back then, with him because he stole it from his ex-boyfriend. He went over to his ex-boyfriend's house and like rummaged around because he felt inclined to steal a bunch of his boyfriend's stuff for some fucked up reason. And he stole some ecstasy, and he also stole some porn VHS tapes. And one of them was this big group of black guys, like 6 or 7 different black guys. And they were playing they were playing that 90s song. Do you guys remember the song Planet Soul?
Oh my god.
No.
Yes, I
I'm probably
do.
too young to remember.
Same here.
Wow, blast from the past.
No, it was a horrible, horrible gay club song. It's like the worst. It was the worst gay club song, but you couldn't escape hearing it. Like if you ever went anywhere even remotely gay, like if you fucking walked by fucking Restoration Hardware, you'd probably hear it, you know. Like it was just, it had diva vocals going like, come into my planet soul, come into my plan, and it was so bad. But he was like, oh my god, I got the funniest thing, it's this porn and with these black guys playing Planet, and I was like, well, show me it. And so we were on ecstasy watching it just because it was funny. And that was my favorite memory of black gay guy porn. But it was not, there was no white guys in the whole thing. And then there was this one particular guy going around, and he sucked all the different guys' dicks. And he was like the guy that I was dating said, he was like, oh, look at that little queen with the do-rag. He's so annoying. He's sucking everybody's dick. Can't you just see him on like a talk show or something? And he'd be all on Jenny Jones being like, I love sucking dick. I can't get enough of it. I just can't get enough of it. So yes, that's my story of black gay porn. Yeah, I will always remember being on ecstasy watching that.
Yeah, I'm probably too young to remember Planet Soul. I'm just listening to it, but I'm like, oh god, that is gay.
It's awful, isn't it? It's a fucking terrible song. It's everything that was bad about the gay.
It's worse than Judy Garland.
See, Judy Garland had some good music. Planet Soul is everything that is bad about the gay 90s. Like everything awful.
Yeah, it's true. I was there. You're totally right.
Oh, I'm glad I was a kid in the 90s.
I was born in 1995, so I'm like, I remember some of the 90s, and I remember the 2000s. I'm like,
oh my god, Prince. What if they were conceived to it?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, your parents could have literally been bumping it on the stereo when.
This could explain so much.
Yeah, my dad was not.
No. My gay 90s song was actually Diva by Dana International. Gay 90s song.
Yes, Dana International is the best.
Yes, I love her. She's my queen.
Hey guys, guess what? That means we got back to Eurovision. We're always 1 degree away from Eurovision. I'm so happy.
Do you know Dana International? If I would
Diva la Diva.
I would name her the best ambassador for LGBT Jews and for LGBT Jews. I feel like she'd be the best representation for us.
That's the thing, right? So like everybody acts like, oh, all this stuff's so progressive with trannies and everything. It's like Dana International won that contest in like what, 1994 or 97, I guess.
98.
Oh, it was 98. Okay, that was it. Who won in 90? I like blocked that out of my memory. But anyway, it's like that was like so long ago, and it's like I can totally see how people are like tired of it. Of like, oh, we need more trans acceptance, and it's like, dude, we already like a tranny won Eurovision like 2 decades ago or whatever. It's like, come on.
I hope she hosts next year's Eurovision, and if she does, I'm gonna be super pissed.
Oh, that would be, I didn't even think of that. Holy shit! But yeah, I love the way trannies sound. Like, we need more tranny pop singers because like their hormones make their voices sound really fucking cool.
Diva la vida, Aphrodite.
There was a few.
Diva la vida,
Love
diva.
Boy, that's my favorite.
There's a few trans people who sing. There's this what's her name? Arias. I forget her. There's that person. God, I would have to look it up or ask somebody. And then there's Justin Vivian Bond, who I don't think is technically trans, but is like a drag queen. That's always a drag queen. Like, you know, one of these weird people that didn't decide to transition but didn't really have to. And they sing, and they're pretty cool as a performer. They were in the movie Short Bus. Did anyone see that?
Yeah, I saw it.
I did actually. That was an interesting one.
That's the person that is like in charge of the Short Bus area is Justin Vivian Bond.
Okay.
Yeah, she's like, oh yeah, you know, like here's where they show the movies. The more boring they are, the louder they laugh. It's that person. I've actually been at parties with that person. I was at a party in San Francisco, and that a friend of mine literally started. This was, I don't know how this happened in retrospect. Like, I was wasted. This was probably at 4 a.m. But there was like 12 gay guys there. and Justin Vivian Bond is in the center of a room, and for some reason it became the thing to do for my friend to pull down Justin Vivian Bond's pants and start sucking their dick. And I don't know if it actually got hard. I don't think it really did, but everyone was around just watching in a circle, and we were just like, oh. And and I had it on tape too. I was taping it. Like nobody minded. People were like, "Oh, we're short bus people." Like, because in short bus there was all this like sex having, like people were having sex in that movie, and so that was the attitude of these people. And I'm like, oh, so I can just tape this? And they're like, yeah. But I think Justin might have been like, well, you can try to suck my dick. I don't think it's gonna get hard at this time of the night, honey. But you can go ahead and try. Like, it was very strange.
You have a lot of stories of just like people having like sex in semi-public places and it being weird.
I've done car play in a park. No joke.
You live in San Francisco long enough. I will try to not tell more than one story like that per episode. Not because they're not funny, but because I want to save them.
Hey, Prince Queens. Have you ever seen car play going on?
Wait, say it again?
Have you ever seen car play going on?
Car what it?
Car play.
What's that?
I don't know what it is. So, basically what it is, if a gay guy can't host and the other gay guy can't host, they do it in their car. And sometimes they have to find a discreet place to do it, or no one will see them. There was actually one time I was getting a blowjob from a guy, and I was just going, oh yeah, and then this guy walked out, so I was like, oh shit! And like, the guy was confused as to what was going on.
Wait. So this is in a car. I can't really hear you very well. I have to be perfectly honest. It's been hard to hear you. And you're telling a story about very specific details. And does anyone else know what type of thing he is talking about?
Okay, so what car play is...
Wait, was this something like you're cruising and like fucking people in a car? Is this kind of story you're telling us?
Okay.
Yeah. So basically what happened was, I was getting a blowjob from a guy in my car, because I was on Reddit. I was like, okay, I'm bored and I'm kind of horny. So basically what I do is like, we hook up in the car, and I'm like, I'm getting a blowjob in the car from him. And what happens is, I thought parking the commercial building would be a good idea. Then this guy comes out smoking weed, and he's like, and basically smoking weed. I'm like, oh shit! And like, because what is going on? And like, we basically skedaddle out of there. Well, this guy is high as fuck. I'm like, oh god, that was a close one. So what car play basically is if two guys can't host, they hook up in their car. So basically it's car fuck.
Oh, okay.
I've done a few.
I get it. Have I ever done that before? I don't really think I have that much. I don't think I ever was interested in having sex so much that I had to do it in some dude's car.
I have twice.
Try doing it at a dental bookstore where it is clean.
Well, I've had sex in public areas, but as I said, only one story per night about those type of things. So, right.
So let's wrap this article up and then we'll
Yes,
get to
yes.
the guest portion. Anyways, for those of you in chat, I basically just skipped a third of the article because it's just describing what the stereotype of black men is. And if you've seen any gay porn, you know what it is. It's just big boobs and long schlong. That's all you got to know. Anyways, fiction is more alluring than fact. Even when presented with empirical data that blacks aren't bigger than whites in any department, the stereotype persists.
Not true. Black guys do have big dick.
Yeah, they do.
It's true.
I was going to say, that's kind of mean of them to say that.
I'm a bitch, and I'm just going to tell black guys, your dick is too small. That's probably about as gay as I'm going to get tonight anyways. Since most white guys haven't had a wide variety of black partners, their perceptions are almost completely formed by porn. Because the media just forms all of our opinions in the social justice.
But the black porn star dicks are even bigger than the white porn stars dicks. So Like I don't. Maybe the white guys with really 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 big dicks just don't make porn. I don't know.
Well, and by their own freaking data, like they even show you that there is a difference. Like if you measure that, it's like I don't know what the math is, but like like a third of an inch or whatever. Like that's when you're talking about up to 6 inches. That's actually not insignificant.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, where was I? Their perceptions are almost completely formed by porn, which only shows performers with penises so big they're mixing drinks in the next room. I guess someone got disappointed by a black guy once. Porn studios claim that they're not only catering to what the market wants, but in reality, they've created the market by systemically perpetuating the idea that blacks are bigger than whites, even though it's demonstrably not true.
They've had. How many times do they even need to write this? Jesus, like this is another like headline article. It's like, okay, like fucking there. This is like a freshman in college takes some like queer studies class, and his professor writes for this blog, and the professor, is late on rent because he's a math addict, so he gives his fucking students this assignment, like write a fucking paper about how it's wrong that this happens, and this was actually written by his freshman college student, and he should sue him.
I wouldn't be surprised.
This reminds me of like there was this article written by some feminist about like just this tirade about how much she hates anal and how stupid she thinks it is, right? And it's just like so over the top that you're like, dude, like all you're doing is just telling us like you didn't like it. That's all you're saying.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to be straight up forward with this. Rules for bottoming. If you are going to bottom, you must always, always douche. No exception. Because nobody likes a dirty bottom, and when you douche, it's a courtesy, because somebody wants a fucking asshole full of shit and have shit on their cock. Even with protection, that's kind of gross.
Yeah. Hey, Jewish bi guy, this sounds really, really horrible. Your audio is so bad, and I know that you have to be quiet, and it's so nothing personal. I would love to stream again with you sometime, maybe during the day when you don't have to be quiet.
My parents are kind of asleep right now, so
yeah. It just seems like maybe it's best that we stream some other time, and maybe we can have a special Gaytriarchy episode where you can be totally loud during the day. Would that be cool?
Oh God, yes.
Okay. Well, that I think that'll make things easy, because every time you talk, it's hard to hear you, and I don't want to put the audience through that. So I hope you
Is this any
understand.
better?
Well, no, when you do that, then we can hear you breathing. And so, yeah, I'd love to have you back some other time, though.
All right.
See you later.
All right.
So, all right. That was really unfortunate because he's a really nice guy, and but he will be back on. We will get to talk to him. I actually am very, very interested in talking to a 22-year-old person that is going through the gay guy coming out process, and I want to totally pick his brain about that when he is not heavily breathing into the phone because he's trying to be quiet. Because that's hard. So. Moving on to the next topic.
We don't. This is the last article.
Oh, okay. Well, then let's go right on to talking to Ryan. Ryan.
Yes.
Let's see. Let me think. The last time we talked, how were you feeling about Trump? Because, okay, we haven't talked in a very, very, very long time. And I've gotten to the point where I can no longer even really call myself left-wing, just in terms of the title. But at the same time, last week I actually took the political compass test, and now granted there were like 5 or 6 questions where I totally pulled a bitch fit and refused to answer and was like, fuck this shit, meh. and then took a shot and answered. But I scored exactly in the center of left libertarian. So you know, I'm still the same sort of thing or as whatever, but I won't call myself left anymore. But you still do. And then of course we have our ANCAP here, and all the way to the left. And I've always wanted to know, like, what's the biggest thing that and the Antifa crowd gets wrong about Marx?
I don't think they've ever really truly read him or understand it. The Antifa movement is the militant wing of the intersectional feminist movement. They don't really understand the underlying concepts of Marx. They're, you know, if they have any understanding of, say, a materialist conception of history, I certainly don't get any of it from what exposure to Antifa I've had. They are all about identity politics, to judge by what I've seen. Marx didn't care a whole great deal about that. To the extent that he did, you know, I guess his social views, much like his economic views, really were a product of their time, the early 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's revolutionary, the Antifa people, maybe in the sense that the image of Che Guevara on a disposable coffee cup, say, is revolutionary, which is to say it isn't.
Mm-hmm. You know what I was listening to recently that I found very interesting? You know who Count Dankula is, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he was interviewed by Tim Pool. Do you ever follow Tim Pool?
No.
Oh, I think you actually enjoy Tim Pool. He's similar to me in terms of politics, and he occasionally will actually do on the ground reporting at. He went to a lot of Antifa type protests, or you know, things that were rallies where Antifa was causing violence. Last year, Tim Pool was showing up and like actually getting real footage of it. And he interviewed Count Dankula, and Dankula used to be a communist back in the day, like probably late last decade. But the thing is that like the Antifa fuckers came along. Like he's from some poor area of the UK where there's, you know, legitimate, probably factory type. I don't know if there's factories, but working class people. Like, and you know, you go to a poor part of the UK, people are poor, and so they have to actually really deal with workers' unions and stuff. And he came from that type of background, and I guess Margaret Thatcher absolutely fucked over the working class in the UK. And so there was this sort of movement of, you know, radical leftists who would organize and work for union rights and everything. And that's what they were all about. And it was an economic thing, you know, and they were trying to actually help out poor people. And I was very cynical about, you know, the Communist Party in the West, and in thinking that it was, you know, it was all just this facade where they were trying to just sort of like grow the party, which granted, you know, is sort of one of the underlying things. But as I've learned more through history, is that the communist movements in the West have actually, they have done things for people. There has been multiple different times when they have actually improved communities of poor people, at least in short-term gains. There has been times when they successfully did do that. But then Dankula says that eventually the Antifa people came along, and it was a bunch of like 20-something, you know, early 20s kids coming in, telling guys in their 50s that they're not radical enough. And the guys in their 50s are like, hey, we've been doing this for the past 20 years. We know what we're doing. We don't want any violence. And the Antifa kids are like, well, then get out of the way because you're the old guard, and like that kind of shit. And so that's when he left the communist movement, and it was a very strange thing for him.
Well, I think that's a pretty old story. You read about the rise of the SDS, the Students for a Democratic Society, back in the early to mid 60s. You know, and UC Berkeley, of all places, west coast of America, you know, much the same kind of things happened. You know, it grew out of what they called the old left, old, you know, blue collar guys, union types who were seen by the younger people as, again, old guard, just old, ossified, you know, stuck in the 1930s sort of thing. So a very similar kind of thing happened there. You know, that's an old story. I think as time went on, I mean, yes, there were times when the communist parties assisted some good and noble movements of their time. They were behind, say, black voter registration in the United States in the early 20th century. I mean, things like that. But that party and that movement have always had these dangerously authoritarian tendencies too.
Yeah.
A lot of what we're seeing with the, you know, with the regressive left of us, kind of a different coat of paint on something that's a lot older, I think, than a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
Because I mean, going back to the SDS, the you know, the radicals of the 60s and 70s, they shook their heads at, say, the, you know, the old Communist Party people and how they kowtowed to Stalin and the Kremlin, but then they would go on to do the same thing about third world revolutionaries who would turn out to be just as bad.
Have you ever heard of this book? I got this book and it was like this like revelation because I knew that somebody had to have made this book and it was like exactly what I was looking for. It's called Red Feminism.
No, never heard of it.
Oh my God. I apparently I'm the only person who has. It's like it's as if almost as if my fairy godmother created it in an alternate reality, and I called her up and she shipped it to me because they don't actually have it at the bookstores. You have to order it, and it costs, you know, a good like $30 plus shipping because they, you know, like I don't know if they have to press it, but like it was one of these books that got a release and then no one fucking bought it, you know. So it was written in 2001 and I believe 2001, 2002, and it's written by a radical feminist leftist, Marxist. But she doesn't consider herself a communist because she thinks that the word communism is associated with the Soviet Union, and that's bad. And she wants everybody to know that this is not a right-wing book trying to say that the feminist movement is really just a bunch of commies, because apparently there's been right-wing people who did that, and they wrote books trying to say that the feminist movement is really just a bunch of commies, and she's not a right-winger. However, she's going to write the rest of her book making sure you know that those right-wing people were totally right. And that, according to her, the feminist movement actually is rooted in the work of communist women pre-McCarthy era. And that the book is sort of, it goes through different female figures in the communist movement from around 1930 to 1950 who made a lot of, who became very, very famous. And I think
Betty Friedan was one of them.
Probably. I could go grab my book. Hold up. I'm going to put you guys on pause and mute myself and grab the book and go to the bathroom because I actually have to piss too. So say whatever you want in my absence. I don't care.
Well, that's not exactly a revelation. The second wave of feminism, the one we're kind of familiar with to come out of the late 60s and early 70s, was completely an offshoot of the SDS. Come right out of it, criticize the SDS for being, of course, male-centered, and women were relegated to secondary roles and so on. But I mean, again, I think this idea that much of what we call feminism today, it arose out of the New Left, out of the 60s and 70s, and it's, again, it's not at all a surprise. It's not exactly esoteric knowledge. If if anyone else has anything to add.
Not the only thing I can really add is that I was doing another longer video that I was actually found one of the first places where feminism, lesbians and stuff, and communism all kind of crossed, and people now, at least some fringy people now, are starting to glom onto that and like it, at least in the last like 10 or so years. I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head. I'd have to dig through some notes, but yeah, it was interesting to find out that the wanting to live a communist lifestyle because men weren't doing enough for them, and gay wasn't good enough or whatever shit. It's just interesting to read.
Yeah, and there's the history of this goes back to actually the very early 19th century utopian socialism. Charles Fourier was a guy you might have heard of. Early 19th century France, 1820, 1830. He actually coined the term feminism. And was first to kind of codify a lot of these ideas that you really kind of became more popular and almost mainstream in the 1960s and 70s. The abolition of the family as a patriarchal unit that was overly restrictive and controlling of people sexually, and the adaptation of communal lifestyles and free love and so on. It's, again, like it so often is, it's less new than you think. It's going on 200 years old now, at least as to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, there's nothing really new under the sun. It's all just recirculating.
No, there never is. It's very cyclical.
I had myself muted. I was back for a little while. So, wasn't Frederick Engels kind of the godfather of it?
Well, I was just mentioning a fellow named Charles Fourier, who was I might not be pronouncing that right, but he was a French utopian socialist that actually goes back farther than Engels.
Really?
Farther than Marx, even 1820s, 1830s. Coined the term feminism.
Ooh, you need to help me with. Okay, so I'm going to have this epic video, and I want you to help me with the research, and I will totally credit you in it. I will say,
a lot of it's on my blog.
I bet it is. So I'm writing a video called Intersectional Feminism is Communist Particle Board. And the idea is that it's just all the different versions of communism that we've had over the past, hundreds of years that communism has been a thing, have been hacked up into bits.
Thousands of years, actually.
Oh God! Don't tell me that I'm gonna start not being able to sleep at night if you tell me things like that. But
it's in the Bible, Prince. It's in the Acts of the Apostles.
I believe you. But but it gets chopped up, and then it gets put because they all splinter off into their own little version of like the Black Panthers, the women's movement, and blah 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 blah, and then it all tries to come back together, and it's like the empire when it becomes corrupted in this like weird evil thing. And intersectional feminism is the current incarnation of like the bad version of social welfare trying to become tyrannical to benefit whoever the fuck it might benefit. And I would like research help from you.
Sure, you can look at, I've got some stuff on my blog that you might find helpful.
Yeah, I will. I know I will have specific questions for you is what I will do. I'll send you messages, and if you have a blog entry, I I will go and I will read through your blogs and I will cite you and everything. So, yeah.
Well, here's a bit of something that I had written about Fourier. This was a little over a year ago I wrote this. I'll send you links to all of this.
When was this guy writing?
Charles Fourier. He could perhaps be considered the great-grandfather of radical feminism, and who, along with Henri de Saint-Simon and Robert Owen, were the earliest articulates of socialist ideas. 200 years before the launching of Tumblr, in addition to actually coining the term feminism, Fourier attacked marriage and gender roles and stressed the potentially fluid nature of gender and sexuality in a pamphlet entitled Le Nouveau Monde Amoureux, early 19th century. The similarities of these and many other Fourier's ideas to present-day postmodernism, critical theory, and feminist theory have not gone unnoticed, and he is cited as a crucial embryonic influence on the thought of the present-day left, especially when it began its post-World War II departure from Marxist orthodoxy. That's what I wrote. Now, Friedrich Engels, much more so than Marx, Engels tackled some, feminist issues as well. He saw the relationship of wife to husband as being quite comparable to that of proletariat to bourgeoisie, say.
Yeah.
I think he thought of it very much in those terms.
Yeah, that was the Origin of the Family, Private Property and the State book.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's referenced a lot in the Red Feminism book. The communist women, they would use that book as their sort of like, their Bible almost. Anytime that they wanted power within the Communist Party, they'd be like, "Well, Engels said this," is what it seems like from reading this book. And yeah. So I'm curious, this might be opening up a can of worms, but I'm curious what Derek has to think about any of this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, mostly it's just kind of interesting historically. One interesting note about Charles Fourier, I believe he's the one who, at one point he had advocated that society be measured, basically by how well it treats its women.
It's that guy? I've heard of this guy.
Yeah, so he's where we get like that link of saying, okay, so he coined feminism. He also said this. And then when you look at feminism in practice, it's really just a form of gynocentrism. It's a more explicit form of it.
Was this the same guy this the same guy that Pocahontas showed around the northwest of the United States? I'm just kidding. Okay, that was not actually funny.
I wasn't sure if you were making an Elizabeth Warren joke, so I got really confused.
No, I'm just imagining some white guy hanging out with like a Native American person, being like, "Oh, I'll treat you right, baby, and we'll start a utopian civilization. Just show me the countryside, Pocahontas." And yeah, but you know what? That was one of those moments where my brain just doesn't actually make sense, and the joke is not going to be funny to me later, aside from how absurd it was.
That's fine though. You gotta fuck up high sometimes.
It's the what it is. It was the tiramisu getting some like sugar caffeine rush and making me.
There's supposed to be a joke like a pie in the face is like a joke, but then sometimes it's like American Pie where they fuck the pie, and that's like the one that was like a joke that was botched. Just like this joke too. How fucking meta is that?
See, you can trade off with this type of like weird, internal monologue. Maybe this is semi-funny to me, and I'm gonna keep talking for a little moment. Okay, let's move on.
I'm sorry, it's just the communist style thinking, just like to get to that like bong hit level of like how they anyway.
Wait, bong hit level? I was supposed to bring weed to this?
Well, I mean, my days of being an avid communist and Marxist are behind me. I don't see any of this as being at all feasible or practical in the real world. The theories maybe have some interesting insights, But, you know, I mean, we go back to Antifa and my earlier observation that this is really just an identity politics kind of movement. And the reason I say that is that if you read, say, you know, don't try and read Capital. That's almost an unreadable. But you read the Communist Manifesto, it's an incredibly dated piece of work. It's very much a product of its time, and it hasn't aged well.
Mm-hmm.
Marx's beliefs about where capitalism would progress and how it would eventually be overthrown and replaced by socialism and eventually communism were based on things that he had seen occurring in the early 19th century, the gradual replacement of cottage industry by by more centralized and capital-intensive manufacturing. And from that, he just extrapolated that that's how things would progress indefinitely, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have an economic system into the 20th century that's corporate, that's diffuse, that's not merely manufacturing and industry, but also a lot of service-based economy, and something along communist lines. It's not feasible or implementable given the type of society we now live in. So while I think that's maybe worth reading from a historical standpoint, I don't see Marx and Marxism right out of the bottle, at least, as being at all useful. So these Antifa people, I think they just sort of fall back on what they know and what they're aware of and what they can do. And these are the leading leftist philosophies, primarily in the colleges, and that's your critical race theory and your feminist theory and so on.
Huh. Well, and you think it's all, I remember talking to you about this, you think it all came from the majority of the sort of the problems that we have these days is generally just rooted in economics. Like because I remember talking about I was on very very MRA type of kick somewhere on the internet, and I was like, no, 78% of all suicides are male, and this is because fucking feminism. Fuck feminism. And you were like, well, no, it's probably mostly economics. Like, the West is economically doing very poorly, and feminism is almost a reaction to that.
Poorly. Some people are doing very well.
Well, it's that's okay. That's a very, very
you're having a very
question.
Great a split. I mean, there's a certain portion of the population that's doing exceedingly well. A lot of other people are just treading water. So
yeah, I mean, well, everybody's doing all right compared to 50 years ago.
Yes.
But this the economic okay, the economic desperateness, I guess, like the feeling of being trapped. Do you feel as if there is something particularly strange going on with global economics at the moment?
By strange, you mean?
Well, we have these weird trade deals. There was like the TPP. There's NAFTA.
So on. Yes.
Yeah, and then like North America, everybody's in a lot of debt, and Western Europe is in a lot of debt. People want to take in all these immigrants, and then there's a lot of building going on, but it's foreign investors, and a lot of the money's coming from China, except for a lot of people project that the Chinese economy is actually not very strong, and that it's all just a bunch of investors hiding their money overseas because they don't want to have to pay taxes to the Chinese government. And also they're taking their investors for a ride, and it's a Ponzi scheme, and it's all going to crash eventually, a lot of people think. because they're not getting a return on these luxury apartments and condos that they're building in places like the United States, Canada, and Australia. And so we're in a very precarious place, I feel. And I feel like communism looks good to people because of all of this. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I think theoretical communism does. I mean, it's nice to envision, a society of, much flatter distribution of wealth and so on. And, I wonder how sustainable the present model of global capitalism is. I think it is precarious. I don't know an awful lot about Chinese investment in property, say, along the North American West Coast. I've heard of it, and I've heard it being blamed for inflating and keeping housing prices artificially high vis-a-vis the income levels of the people living in these places. So housing is unaffordable to the majority of the population.
Well, it's not just the West Coast. It's the worst in the West Coast, but it is
Yes.
in basically everywhere, actually. Like maybe not in where you are, but I'm sure it's in Toronto. It's certainly in Vancouver. Actually Vancouver is maybe the worst of all of the West Coast, maybe rivaling San Francisco. And it's because there was a period of time when it was harder for the Chinese investors to build in San Francisco. So they would just all build in Vancouver for some reason. And there's this like weird amount of like just total shacks that are in Vancouver that are, worth over $1 million for some reason. And it's this very strange thing.
I mean, there's that, and then of course there's the sort of backlash against globalization that we've seen, that of an expression of this Sanders was too, coming from slightly different political and overarching social philosophies, obviously, but the bottom line is that a lot of people feel left behind by the changes in the global economy and in the in the social structure that has gone along with that. So it's politically quite volatile.
Oh, I have a question for you. This is a strange one. So there's this guy that keeps watching my videos, and he is a gay guy, and he has a blog, and he's been he apparently wants to get me to read it, but it's I've looked at some entries, but the entries aren't very long. Like he said that he shouted me out, and then I looked, and it was like an entry that I was hoping for some like review, some like him talking about me for a while, and then it was like less than a paragraph, and I'm like, oh, but it was there. It was there. He writes about a lot of different things. I think I haven't really had time to go through his blogs, but he writes about economics, and one of the things he said is that gay men don't earn more money than straight men, and that rumor that gay guys make more money than straight guys is untrue somehow. And that was a thing of his, like it was an actual point. And that made me think about, people, there's a stereotype. If you go to a big city, the gay neighborhood is always quite expensive to live in. And there's reasons for that. I think that it's a combination of the fact that there's the dual income household, right? So it's not that necessarily each individual gay guy makes more than straight guys on average, because I don't think that that's probably true. I think that in most working environments, in the actual corporate ladders and places where you really end up getting a lot of money, for the most part, it's advantageous to be a heterosexual male, That's going to be my guess. But having the dual income, two gay males, that's probably going to be more than a man and a woman on average. But also there's the fact that gay men want to live by other gay men, and many gay men feel that they can only live by other gay men. So they will vigorously compete to try to live in that gay area. And that's where the combination of those things make it for a really, really high rate. And so we have this like isolated population. But when you start getting these enclaves of gay men and everything, there runs into this like strange kind of crisis where a lot of gay men want to be leftists for certain reasons, but then you start realizing that there's this immediate conflict where guys start becoming kind of like, wait, but I have to spend a lot of money for housing to live by other gay guys, and I'm not getting a whole lot back from this social services that are mostly provided to women. And then I think that there's going to be, I've met, we have Derek here all the way on the left, and then I've met this other guy who's a gay ANCAP. Do you think that there's
left.
What?
It's the right.
Okay, all the way up to the so far right on the screen that he actually comes out on the left visually. Is that good?
No, there's the horseshoe thing is bullshit. There's no such thing.
Okay.
What I do is I put myself on the corner, like on the corner, like jumping off of it in the purple land, in that corner. That's the correct corner to jump off of, in my opinion.
But okay, I'm just asking you, Ryan, what do you think about this concept of, do you think it sounds plausible from what I was just saying that there might be an emerging future for gay ANCAPs?
Well, for gay libertarians, yes, that makes sense. You know, because when you get into, you know, higher income, and especially when you begin, you know, owning property, having some capital, an investment portfolio, and so on, well, you know, radical or utopian leftism stops seeming like a good idea, obviously. I think, though, that it maybe goes a bit beyond the idea of immediate economic self-interest. It's also when you're doing well financially, say, you're less desperate, you're less frustrated with the direction your life has gone, and thus you feel less psychological impetus to support some or any kind of radical change. You know, the frustrated and angry people who feel stuck in crappy lives are the ones that will go for really any kind of, you know, I don't know if extremist is necessarily the word for it, but anything that promises substantial change. It could be, you know, far left or far right. And as you know, you have we're guessing a good job, maybe something with the income that allows, that allows somebody to live in a pricey, maybe kind of gentrified neighborhood. Yeah, you don't really want to see the social order upset quite so much, because now you've carved yourself out a niche in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's that.
Yeah.
And another thing that happens is as you progress and climb the career ladder, of course, you age. And, you know, my father, when I was in my 20s, my father used to say, and, Churchill is often attributed to this quote. It's like, well, if you're in your 20s and you're young and you're radical, you're not radical, you don't have a heart. But if you're still radical in your 40s, you don't have a brain. Something to that effect. Like when you age, your sense of what's possible and feasible in the real world, you get more of a sense of it. I mean, that's why, major part, I guess, of why I don't think of myself as, certainly not as a Marxist or, any kind of, revolutionary socialist. I mean, something along the lines of a renewed social democracy is a very far-fetched proposition right now.
Yeah, you're like, fuck that shit. I have kids. How are your kids doing, by the way?
Oh, they're fine.
See any of the new movies come out with them?
Movies. No, we don't get to theaters very much. It's pretty expensive, and
Yeah,
you know, it's just becoming increasingly, from where I sit, it's just a lot of political anvil dropping, and no, you know.
well, Ready Player One is pretty good.
Okay.
I would recommend. I mean, it's going to be on home theaters. I saw it probably about a month ago. But yeah, it's worth seeing. It's definitely worth seeing. It's apparently they butchered the book, and the people who read the book hate it. But the book was only written in like 2015, so it did a really, really good job of actually imagining a world of online gaming. Like it was obviously written by somebody who is an actual online gamer and plays, Call of Duty, some game where you get to have a team fighting against the other teams, and they got really used to that, and then they decided to write a whole book around it, and then it got made into this Steven Spielberg movie, and it's quite good. It's quite interesting. It's like virtual reality, the movie that you always wanted, kind of. It's cheesy and everything. It's sort of like, I would say it's probably a movie ultimately that's made for 11-year-old boys, is what it is. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I liked it.
No, the last thing we saw was The Last Jedi.
Yeah. You have girls though, right?
Again, I didn't think it was as bad as the critics or the film's detractors make it out to be, but I don't think it's anything special.
You have girls though, right?
Boys.
Oh crap! I forget things. Sorry. So okay, yeah. Yeah. Wait, how old are you boys?
One's 15, the other is, I think, 11. Yeah, 11.
Oh yeah. Get the well, I think they both kind of like it. Like the 15-year-old would maybe say that he didn't really like it, but he secretly would kind of like it because I liked it. But your 11-year-old will fucking love Ready Player One. Like any 11-year-old boy will fucking love it.
Yeah, maybe.
So hey, Farrell, Farrell over here makes a lot of videos about masculinity and this notion that gay men need to sort of reclaim their masculinity or define masculinity for themselves. And your sort of version of it is something along the lines of learning how to not necessarily so much be independent, but maybe pull one's weight amongst
absolutely.
Yeah. And you hang out with mostly straight men, or mostly your friends. I'm curious about you. I want you to ask. I see. I'm like, you do my job for me. I want you to ask. I
don't know if I could fill those shoes, but okay.
I want you to ask Ryan a question about being a grown-ass man, as somebody who actually is raising boys, who's a heterosexual male who's raising boys. What wisdom would Ryan have? And maybe you shouldn't, maybe you should think about some sort of question like that. But Ryan, I want to ask you directly. Like I want you to think about if you have a specific angle that you can come at with this. If you sort of following my train of thought, Farrell. But Ryan, I want, this thing that we're doing, this GigTow thing. And after we talk about this, I think we'll close out the show because I don't want to keep you up too late because I know you're in, some other place and you work and stuff. But we're starting this kind of, okay, this movement is happening, whether we want to start it up or not. It's already happening. There's guys who are calling themselves gigtows. They hate feminism. They want to be around other gay guys that hate feminism. But at the same time, it's like, well, what are, because of the fact that when gay men decide to come out of the closet, they enter into a new world, often, very, very often, most often, surrounded by other gay men. But currently, all the other gay men are all feminists. So we enter this world that turns us into blithering,
Zombies.
blithering crybabies. People who, like, can't handle being rejected, who can't handle, who like, if we see some guy say a sexist, if we hear Trump talk about grabbing a woman by the pussy, we feel like we're supposed to freak out. Oh, I don't, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, it infantilizes gay men in the same way that women get infantilized, and it's really a problem. So we're trying to form some sort of guiding thing of guidance for gay men to get out of that mentality, especially in particular younger guys. For you as a dad of like a 15-year-old boy, what are the types of what are the types of lessons that you want guys who are starting to realize that they're men to think about? What would you say?
Oh boy.
That's a tall order.
Yeah.
When I was that age, obviously, well, sexual orientation wasn't a thing with me, and I guess, I mean, I had other issues where that was concerned. When I was in my teens, I went through a very, very aggressive phase of being against friendships and closeness and interpersonal intimacy of any kind. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. That was a fucking disaster. But that's a whole other story. But something that I did kind of learn from that era as well, and this was sort of when all that satanic panic business came up too, is that there are times when...
And just in case anyone's tuning in, Ryan was a legit satanic metalhead in the 1980s.
Well, people thought I was. I mean, I listened to Slayer and bands like that. I mean, I never cared much about real sort of, worship of the devil or anything like that. I was brought up Catholic, so...
You didn't have any baby goats in your freezer?
No. Sorry, man. But going through that, being, listening to that kind of, metal music in a very, very Christian conservative environment where I went to school, is you learn to stand on your own 2 feet vis-a-vis the things you believe. So really, it's don't let other people speak for you or define your reality or tell you how to live. I mean, be a good citizen in as far as reasonably getting along with your neighbors and so on are concerned, but there's a lot of pressure put on people to conform ideologically. Now, when I was 15, being socially conservative. I mean, today, of course, that means being a feminist sloganista, for lack of a better way of putting it. I think they're cut from the same cloth at the end of the day, despite the differences in the doctrines. There's still a lot of groupthink, and it gets very cult-like sometimes. So, your independence of thought is really the most valuable thing you have. Don't sell it or give it away to an identity or a movement or anything like that, because you will regret it. I would say something like that.
I'd say that's fantastic.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. And, it's so funny as we do this GigTow, embark on this like weird GigTow project, which you know ultimately, um, it's like gays going their own way. Well, where are we going? I don't know. Are we all going to go in the same direction? Not
And if
necessarily.
you
No,
are
no.
all going in the same direction, are you going your own way?
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
mean, I look at MGTOW, and so much of the time, what I see is just a male version of what radical feminism is.
yeah, and I am firmly like, okay, like I don't even identify as GigTow personally. Like that's I didn't actually come up with it, but I, you know, am just at sort of the epicenter of it. And but I get why it is, and I can totally understand why certain guys are doing it. And you know, Katz is the guy who actually invented it, and he's not here today. But his reasons for doing so is basically he's thinking that the alliance between the L's and not so much the bisexual men, but the lesbians, the transgender people, and the every other letter in the soup, like the LGBTQIA plus, you know, whatever, that they are. It's no longer a healthy alliance for the gay male demographic, and in fact, it's both abusing us emotionally, it's messing with our heads, and it's also um, he doesn't stress this as much as I do, but it's draining our resources. Like, gay men are the guys who are funding those charities.
Oh
Like
God, that is so true.
they're the guys who are fucking, you know, at the end of the day, it's not like the fucking trans people or the lesbians who are paying the bills of the drop-in center or whatever. It's like some rich gay guy who thinks he's donating money for some, you know, he's imagining himself in the 1980s for that week when his dad kicked him out, and then his dad realized that he was being a cunt and let him come back, and he's remembering that week and how horrible it was, and so he's thinking, oh, there's this like queer drop-in center, I should donate money to that every year. Meanwhile, he doesn't understand that place that it is, the queer drop-in center, what it really is like feminist indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Well,
guy
I think
just does.
you get that. I think you get that everywhere. I think there's this almost this deceptive kind of fallacy of equivocation that's worked right into the method of feminist activism. I mean, to people who don't look at it in depth, they just think, yes, equal rights, you know, equality for women, good deal. But then you get into the details of the ideology and the method of activism, and you see something that's, you know, that's very authoritarian. I call it the un-Nazism. It's like Nazism inverted. You talk about, say, gay males. Well, the cis white gay man is, you know, frowned upon in the same sort of way that, say, I saw an article in an intersectional feminist paper the other day, and it said, like, cis hetero black men are the white people of black people.
That's what does that even mean anyway?
And then other articles, of course, go after white feminism quite a bit. So there's this pecking order where the more marginalized identities you have, the higher up you are. And so in that sense, it's, you know, it's almost like Nazism in that way. You know, they felt that the Aryan race was the superior one, and then a step down from that were the Anglo-Saxons, and on down the line, and the Slavs were low, and the blacks were low, and of course the Jew was at the very bottom. You know, the cis het straight white male is the Jew, the Untermensch of the intersectional movement. But you only sort of grasp that if you really look at this in detail and cut through the slogans and the, you know, and the talking points, and actually look at the way this really works.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's very, you know, it is founded on a kind of, well, there's a lot of gaslighting types of techniques that go into how they relate with other people.
Yeah. Well,
you know, they'll use guilt to control you and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, and when it comes to the LGBT community or whatever, This is a point that I really try to hammer home because I I cannot stress this enough, especially to heterosexual men. When you are a gay white man, um, like, and you're not an SJW, you get probably more shit than straight white men who aren't SJWs because they can kind of expect it from straight white men who
Yes,
are.
yes.
But like when oh boy, when fucking Milo Yiannopoulos or when I come on the scene, like they fucking it's like this, and it's like straight white guys. I've talked to you about this before. Like they will flip the fuck out and say that they're gonna like beat me up and shit like that. And
Or
it's a
they'll
real.
flip out over a black guy like Kanye West going over to be a Trump supporter.
Oh yeah, exactly.
They take that as a kind of betrayal.
Yeah, and there's the betrayal aspect, and then with gay men, there's these other layers where, first of all, we're still white men. Second of all, they can start doing like weird little twisted things in their head where they start thinking that we're only gay because we hate women, and then we become a threat to the women. And that is a narrative that's only come up in recent years, but it's come up really strong. Like they're like, oh, the gay guys are the biggest threat to womankind. And it's like, so it's getting to the point where many gay guys are kind of getting fed up. Most guys are still very closeted about this, and they don't know that other gay guys are like this. But like, it's not hard to find other gay guys that, like, if you were to go out to a bar and like get a guy in a corner and get him drunk, he'd be like, oh my fucking god, I know, Jesus, fuck these bitches, I'm so sick of their fucking lesbianic bullshit, fuck these, and they would do that. So the purpose of GigTow is to kind of like withdraw from the LGBT alliance, not necessarily as individuals, but also as a unified force to show the LGBT that they have been abusing. Like if they do want to have a relationship with us at all, then we need to renegotiate terms. So GigTow, there is an actual specific purpose for GigTow being a somewhat unified thing, which I can very much understand, even though I would personally feel kind of rather confined by that, just because I'm personally a cross pollinator and I like talking to everybody. But I consider myself sort of the ambassador to GigTow, and
I mean, plus I think the feminist view and the intersectional feminist view in particular, it's so ideological and it's so dogmatic. And the thing is they just take over any and every other space and just simply use this to propagate their ideology and spam the environment with their talking points and their slogans and so on. And it's that's incredibly frustrating to have to deal with this, because you've got people that the whole thing is just about trading in your own perceptions of things and just reading out of this ideological songbook. And I can see why anybody would get tired of that after a while.
Yeah, well, and especially because like it's eroded on gay male spaces, and gay male spaces don't exist anymore, really. And now they're LGBT spaces where gay men are second-class citizens. So it's gotten to this thing where gay men are paying the bills for this fucking weird feminist fucking shit, and we don't even get a clubhouse. So like we're lucky if we get a shack outside their clubhouse that they stole from us, and they don't even want us to have the man shed anymore. And yeah, it's this really strange predicament. Farrell, did you come up with any questions?
Well, no, really asked the one that I was thinking about asking. Actually, yeah, I do have a question now that I think about it. Okay, well, you've been a dad for what, 15 and 11 years? So I'm sure you've had to had a chance to really think about it, what kind of men do you want your boys to grow up to be? What kind would you want for them?
I would say wow, never really thought about that.
Really?
I think responsible.
Bricklayers.
I think responsible is the word I would use. Whatever choice you make, just own it.
It's a good trait.
Yeah.
You know, if you think that way, you know, you can do a lot more in life than if you just allow yourself to be a pinball shot around by what you think the expectations of other people are. So, you know, don't be selfish in a malignant sense that, you know, you just see other people as resources for yourself to use and exploit as and when you see fit. But at the end of the day, other people aren't paying your bills. So they're not the ones that should be making the decisions about the kind of lives they live. So in a sense, that's what I mean by be responsible. Like, make choices knowing that you are going to be the one to have to do the work for it. Think about it. I guess is what that's the kind of thing that I would like to pass on to them. If that answers your question.
Oh, it certainly does. That's exactly what I was getting at, was what kind of values do you want to instill in them, and those are perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my dad could have done a little bit. I mean, I understand why that responsibility thing wasn't entirely instilled upon me. My dad didn't really have the chance to be a dad to me in a way, just because my childhood was very chaotic. And it wasn't his fault, really. It was the fault of like his marriage collapsing and then my sister being crazy. It was a very, very long story. But I I was never taught to properly be responsible in the way that a dad should. But that would have required me to like fully respect my dad, which I didn't when I was young, due to very complicated reasons that uh, he and I both have come to peace with. Now when I became an adult, I realized that I should have respected many things about him that I didn't. And if I had respected him when I was young, then he would have been able to instill these values in me. But I didn't. But what he did instill in me, which was really, really great. It wasn't so much that he was saying be responsible for your actions, but he did definitely say, look, I know how you're gonna be, because by the time you were a toddler running around, I knew that you were a little me. So what I want you to know is that I want you most to do anything that you're most interested in, and that you should feel free to have that permission to do that, because once you find that thing that you're really, really, really interested in, it's going to take you very, very, very far, because you're never going to drop it. Because that's how I was. And because my dad was a computer scientist before there were computers. He was one of the people with like the plugging in the plugs in the fucking 1950s, like telling people, yeah, I do this thing called computers. People are like, what's that? And he's like, it's gonna change the world, man. And so
It did.
yeah. So, and he was obsessed with it, like even well into his 70s, he was sitting there on his computer trying to like come up with little computer invention things, like, and some of them might have worked too. Like I don't know like what he was really doing, but he's always sitting there doing some shit. like some program or some he was working on. So that was a good value that he instilled upon me. Like instead of saying like, hey, always have a backup option, blah 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 blah, he was like, no, I know how my mind works. I should instill what served me best into my son because I know that my son's mind is similar. Anybody else have any more questions, or should we let our friend go?
Yeah, I'm pretty much.
I was thinking of asking a question about Das Kapital, but he explicitly said like don't read it. Also, like maybe we shouldn't open that put on that path at this time. But it's very interesting.
Read it if you want, but it's one hell of a slog.
It really is. I remember reading it right about, I'm thinking it was 2-3 years ago. It's great if you have insomnia.
Oh yeah, it'll knock you right out.
Yeah, any of those real thick economics books, or I say economics with air quotes, are really shitty to read.
But they're really useful. There's that corner on the couch that, doesn't quite fit right. You can just slide it right under there and it stabilizes it. So they are useful.
I did want to mention one thing is this came up in the chat, this idea of like there's books we should all read. And I know that Prince earlier you said maybe we should have like a book club kind of thing. I don't know. I feel like there's that like king, warrior, magician, lover. Just like a kind of a masculinist classic sort of thing. Red feminism, feminist lie. Anyway, I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah. Those are yeah. That's interesting. By the way, Black Knight Fool is chatting up in the chat, and he keeps saying this thing that I kind of wanted to address with my voice because I was trying to. I don't know if you guys ever like chat with this fucker, but like you'll send him Twitter DMs and he will send you like 5 in a row that are all paragraphs, and he's very intelligent, has very interesting things to say. But
he always has.
But sometimes he gets in on his own little trip and he's sort of just wrong about something. And one of the things that he's wrong about, I need to just correct, he has this idea that lesbian feminists that are mean to men are largely doing it because they see men as competition. And so they're trying to get rid of the men so that they can best have the girls. And he thinks that I just wouldn't know about that because I'm a gay man and I'm not seen as competition. No, that's not what it is. No. Lesbian feminists that hate men are very, very often like a huge amount of lesbians are temporary lesbians. They're not fully sexually attracted to women. They secretly just had bad experiences with men, like maybe they were like actually raped as a young girl or some crap like that. They deeply hate men, and when they try to get men to leave, they do the same thing to gay men. Often they'll allow men around, gay men around, but they kind of always hate us as well, and it's just because of their deep mistrust and hatred. And they think that all men are rapists and evil, and they like have this like it's this instinct about them. But then this weird, at the same time, and I know this because I have lesbian friends that were in like lesbian bands that would play at the Michigan Women's Festival, which is like the international lesbian festival of all lesbian festivals, where like no trans women are supposed to even be allowed in there. Like no penises at all are supposed to go into that place. The girl in the band was very, very butch and masculine, and so when she would have lesbian sex, she would always be the one with the strap on, and she said that all of the man-hating fucking feminist lesbians, they would all tell her, "Oh my god, yes, you fuck like a man. It's so hot. Oh my god, fuck me with your cock. Fuck me, man." And she was like, "Yeah, never let a lesbian tell you that they don't want the cock deep down, because they all do." And she told me that, and she was fucking serious. Like, she was extremely serious. So it is not so simple as simply like trying to get rid of, like, thin the herd for competition so that they can have, like, it's some weird pathological shit that makes these bitches act like that. It is
Yeah,
not.
it's a psychological disorder almost.
Yeah. So
Well, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing what percentage of those, especially the more radical, have other underlying or other mental issues like cluster B personality disorders.
oh yeah, it has to
Oh
be
yeah.
like all of them.
I mean, I'm pretty sure with the transgenders out there, I would say that you're more than likely going to see quite a bit of histrionic personality disorder, to say the least.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Well, Prince, I
it's
think we've had this conversation before, and seen a lot of what looks like narcissistic and borderline types of behavior just from feminists online.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I was looking at borderline is the most confusing. I always forget exactly what are the common traits in observation of borderline. Antisocial personality disorder is what my friend has. Like, I have this, like, this my ex-friend who I will never ever hang out with again ever. He's horrible, and he is a textbook anti, like I looked it up on Wikipedia, and it was like you go down the common traits in observation. He's literally all of them. And that's just somebody who has no ability to empathize with another person at all whatsoever, and just can only really think about themselves. Um, and then so I don't really know borderline. I know that one. And then there's histrionic. And then there's
Very
narcissistic.
attention seeking.
Yeah, and
The
histrionic.
histrionic person's very dramatic, and everything they do is about, about drawing attention to themselves.
And they'll lie and change their story and believe their own lies. Like, if there's a series of events, like let's say something happened to them last Friday, and for whatever reason they thought that something really, really bad happened to them, they'll exaggerate it in their own mind, and they'll tell their friend, they'll be like, I cannot believe that you wouldn't pull back my hair when I puked up blood all over the sidewalk. I got blood in my hair. And she's like, girl, you were coughing. You didn't even puke. What are you talking about? And but she'll actually believe that she had this thing where, like, that's like severe histrionic. Narcissistic is a little bit different than what people think. Narcissistic doesn't just mean that they think that they're really great and special and unique and that they're in love with themselves. Narcissistic personality disorder, what it really means is that they relate every action in the world as being somehow centered around them. And this woman was giving a talk about it, and she has narcissistic personality disorder. But the thing is about it is that if you have this and you learn that you have it, it can become benign. So, like, you know that you have it, you can think your way out of it and not be like
This woman's
if you
name
try.
is Tammy something or another, isn't it?
I'm not sure. Black hair.
I saw a video by somebody who's very much like that, addressing a college conservative group, I think.
Yeah, she was quite interesting. She might have
She was a former Now leader, I think, who had gone over to the other side, who had become a conservative.
Yeah, very likely. So the story that she told was that to provide as an example was that she was at home and some crow came up to the window and started.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's the same one. Yeah, the crow came up on the window and started tapping on the glass. And in her head, she was like, "Oh my God, I'm in the movie The Birds. The birds are gonna come get me. They're coming to get me. They're coming to get me." And she called up her friend, and she's like, "I don't know what to do if I leave. If the birds are gonna be there, they're gonna swarm and they're gonna kill me." And her friend is like, "Okay, we can work through this," because I'm guessing that's not what's actually going on. And they thought through it, and it turned out that the bird was just breaking seeds on the glass because the glass is hard, and it was the most hard thing around for the bird to break seeds open on. But she thought it was all about herself. So if you think about these transgender people, I would be more. I mean, I'm sure some of them have narcissistic, but I would be a little bit more inclined to think histrionic, because these are people that are inventing a weird alternate reality to get themselves more attention, and they might actually believe some of it.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of that in narcissism too. I mean, what I've heard about narcissistic personality disorder is that the person who has it has this idealized version of themselves that they try to project out onto reality, and they need to have this idealized version of themselves continually validated by other people. And the word for that is supply. They try to get narcissistic supply out of their relationships.
Huh.
So they have to be acknowledged as, however it is they envision their ideal self, not necessarily who and what they really are, but it's, it's inevitably some variation on a theme there, where they're famous, or they're rich, or they're radical, or they're rebels, or there's something like that. And they seek to project this, and they require everybody to continually validate these ideas about them. And if you don't, or if you start poking holes in it, watch out, because they get vicious.
I think there's some YouTubers that might be kind of like that. It's funny too, because the woman said she made it very clear that everybody has these traits within them. It's not that almost everybody can sort of relate to these stories a little bit, but there's some people who, it's a pathological thing with them. I definitely have more than average of the narcissistic personality disorder thing, like definitely, and at certain times in my life more so. But then I'm like, do I have that? And then I'm like, wait, no, I think I just used to be kind of a cunt. Like, I think I just used to be kind of like young and selfish, and I had a lot of people around that enabled me to be like that all the time. And then they stopped. They were like, you know what? We're fucking sick of your shit. And like, you got kind of fat and you're not as hot as you used to be. So like, stop it. And then I did. Dead air. All right, should we be ending this? I think that it's getting kind of late for you over wherever you are.
Yeah, I gotta go to bed. I've been up since 5, and it's after 11 where I'm at. So
oh my god,
well done.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and offering some parental wisdom for a fledgling movement. I think that was actually very valuable because we have not had anything like that so far. Katz will be quite interested to listen to this tomorrow if he's not. Yeah, he's probably not listening because otherwise he'd be here. So yeah, thank you very, very much for tuning in, everybody who did. And we will be back next Friday and every Friday at 8 p.m. And unless there's a schedule change and we have to do it earlier or later to fit somebody's schedule. 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 East or 11 Eastern, and
10 Central.
10 Central. And I believe next week is I have a more solid confirmation from the gay guy who's the libertarian, trying to run as a libertarian in Toronto. He also has like a good job. I think he's like some sort of like engineer type person. So he is very busy trying to like simultaneously have a good job and then like sort of try to like run as a libertarian politician. He doesn't actually think he's going to win, but he's trying to like get it on the ballot, so he's doing that kind of a thing. And he's a gay guy and he seems cool, so he's hopefully going to come on. I've been wanting to talk to him for like well over a year. And I guess that's the end.
Okay, well, thanks for having me and good talking to everyone.
See ya.